Abdullah, a wealthy and guarded heir, pretends to be disabled in a desperate attempt to find someone who will love him for who he truly is. When he meets Huda, a compassionate and selfless woman, he believes he has found that love. But as their relationship deepens, the secret he's kept threatens to destroy everything. What starts as a heartfelt romance built on laughter and connection takes a dramatic turn when the truth unravels on their wedding day. Can love survive deception, or will the lies prove too much to overcome? A modest young woman agrees to marry a billionaire who is paralyzed, but on the day of the wedding, she runs away after learning a shocking truth. Huda Zarani pressed her phone tightly to her ear, her mother's sharp voice cutting through. "Huda, this isn't up for debate. You're 30. You should at least meet him." Huda leaned against the bus window, watching the blur of Shah's bustling streets. "I'm not coming to the matchmaking dinner, Mama. I've told you this so many times." Her mother sighed sharply before the call ended with a resolute click. Huda slipped her phone into her bag and gazed at the city outside, bathed in the soft golden glow of the setting sun. But the warm hues did little to lift her spirits. At her age, love was no longer an adventure or a dream, it was an obligation. Her parents' constant reminders about her single status weighed heavily on her. But Huda held on to her belief that love should happen naturally, like the stories she had read growing up. Her own experience with love had been fleeting, a single tender relationship in her university years that had ended before it truly began. Since then, she had focused on helping others, convinced that love would come to her when she least expected it. The bus came to a halt near the cultural center, where the evening's charity gala was being held. As she stepped off, her heels clicked against the pavement, and she straightened her shoulders. Tonight, she would bury herself in work and avoid the creeping doubt that her ideals about love were becoming unrealistic. Inside the venue, the atmosphere buzzed with activity. Layla, her coworker, waved her over, her expression frazzled. "Huda, thank God you're here. We have a problem. The upstairs venue isn't wheelchair accessible. We need to move everything downstairs." Together, they worked tirelessly, reconfiguring the event's layout at the last moment. By the time they were finished, Huda was exhausted, her feet ached, and her eyes felt heavy, but the gala was finally ready to begin. As the event got underway, Huda slipped out of the crowd for a brief moment of quiet. She carried a stack of auction files toward the main doors, her focus slipping as exhaustion caught up with her. She didn't notice the door until it was too late, and the files scattered across the polished floor. She crouched to gather them, unnoticed by most of the guests. Then, a wheelchair rolled into view. A young man with an easy smile bent down and handed her a piece of paper. "Here, I think this belongs to you." Huda looked up, freezing in place. His warm, steady gaze caught her off guard. For a moment, the noise and chaos around her seemed to fade. He smiled again before wheeling away, leaving her clutching the papers to her chest. Something about him lingered, a quiet magnetism. Throughout the evening, Huda found her eyes drifting toward the young man. He moved through the crowd with grace, chatting effortlessly with guests. His wheelchair seemed almost invisible, as though it were an extension of his confidence and charm. What struck her wasn't his disability, but the calm self-assurance with which he carried himself. His unguarded laugh cut through the chatter, leaving a warm impression on everyone around him. Huda tried to focus on her tasks, but her curiosity about him grew. Who was he? How had he ended up at the gala? She caught herself stealing glances, embarrassed at her lack of focus. As the evening wound down, she busied herself adjusting auction items at the back of the hall. She didn't notice him approach until his voice broke the silence. "You've been working nonstop tonight." Startled, she turned to find him a few feet away, smiling gently. "It's part of the job," she replied, her voice steady despite the flutter in her chest. "Well, it doesn't go unnoticed. It's rare to see someone so dedicated," he said, his tone sincere. Huda finally smiled back. "Thank you. That's kind of you to say." For the next few minutes, they talked with surprising ease. He introduced himself as Abdullah al-Farsi and spoke about his passion for community work and his belief in the power of small actions to bring about big changes. He was sharp, thoughtful, and unexpectedly funny. Huda found herself laughing at his dry humor, her exhaustion momentarily forgotten. She shared her own experiences, her love for helping others, and the long nights spent organizing events like this one. As the crowd began to thin, Abdullah glanced at the time. "It's getting late, but I hope this isn't the last time we talk." Before she could respond, he handed her a small card with his number. Huda hesitated for a moment before accepting it. As she watched him wheel away, her heart felt lighter. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to wonder if fate had finally decided to intervene. In the days that followed, Huda found herself thinking about Abdullah more than she had expected. His warm, steady presence lingered in her mind like a gentle glow, leaving her to smile quietly to herself. As she reflected on their conversations, a quiet warmth began to bloom in Huda's heart. Yet, beneath that growing fondness, a persistent voice whispered doubts. Abdullah used a wheelchair, something she hadn't experienced in a romantic relationship before. The thought stirred a mix of feelings. Would it change things? Could she navigate the challenges that might come with it? These questions swirled in her mind, leaving her unsure. But despite her hesitation, Huda couldn't ignore the connection she had felt. Acting on impulse, she sent Abdullah a text. His reply was immediate, warm, and inviting. Soon, they had arranged their first date. On the day of the date, Huda felt her nerves unraveling. Her mind raced with worries. Would the conversation flow naturally? Would people around them stare? But when she stepped into the bustling cafe and saw Abdullah's radiant smile, her doubts melted away. The hours passed like minutes as they talked. They exchanged stories, shared laughter, and discovered common ground in unexpected places. With Abdullah, Huda didn't feel like she was with someone different. She felt like she was with someone she could truly connect with, someone she might even fall in love with. As weeks went by, their bond deepened. Huda began to see Abdullah for who he truly was, not as a man in a wheelchair, but as Abdullah, thoughtful, kind, funny, and endlessly engaging. His disability faded into the background of their time together. What mattered most to her was the way he made her feel, his attentiveness, his ability to listen deeply, and the way he could make her laugh like no one else ever had. Yet, a small voice of doubt lingered. Late at night, questions would creep in. What would their future look like together? Would life with Abdullah present challenges she wasn't ready for? How would others perceive their relationship? Was she truly ready to embrace everything that came with loving him? One evening, as the sunset painted the sky in vibrant hues, Huda and Abdullah sat on a bench overlooking the waterfront. The calm water shimmered under the fading light, but Huda's heart felt heavy with unspoken thoughts. Taking a deep breath, she decided to be honest. "Abdullah," she began, her voice soft but steady, "I care about you, I really do. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't scared. I've never been in a relationship like this before." Abdullah turned to her, his expression calm and curious. "You mean because of my wheelchair?" he asked gently, without any trace of judgment. Huda nodded, guilt pooling in her chest. She avoided his gaze, terrified that her honesty might hurt him. But instead of recoiling, Abdullah reached for her hand. His touch was firm, yet comforting, his tone understanding. "I get it," he said quietly. "It's not something everyone is used to, and I know it's not easy. But Huda, I don't want you to love me despite this chair. I want you to love me for who I am, with or without it." His words pierced through her doubts and fears. She looked up, meeting his steady gaze. In that moment, Huda realized just how deeply she cared for him. Abdullah wasn't defined by his disability. He was the man who made her laugh, who saw her for who she truly was, who brought peace and joy into her life in ways she hadn't known she needed. Tears welled in her eyes as she whispered, "I do, Abdullah. I love you for exactly who you are." As the sun dipped below the horizon, leaving the world bathed in twilight. A sense of certainty settled in Huda's heart. This wasn't about challenges or how others might perceive their relationship anymore. It was about Abdullah, the man beside her who had shown her that love, in all its forms, was worth fighting for. The complexities of their love were undeniable, but to Huda, every risk was worth it. Abdullah's disability wasn't what defined him. It was simply a part of him, like the warmth in his voice or the spark in his eyes. After their heartfelt conversation, Huda's lingering doubts began to fade. Their bond grew stronger, and before long, Abdullah proposed to her in Al-Maz Park, the very place where they had first opened their hearts to each other. With tears streaming down her cheeks and her heart brimming with joy, Huda said yes. In that moment, the wheelchair became irrelevant. What mattered was Abdullah, the man who had become her everything. Their journey together hadn't been conventional, and it certainly wasn't without challenges, but it was real. It was theirs. Huda felt elated. She had said yes to her soulmate, and now they were planning the biggest day of their lives, their wedding. Huda envisioned walking down the aisle, exchanging vows, and promising to stand by Abdullah forever. The excitement of planning consumed her. She searched for the perfect dress, picked a scenic venue along the Corniche, and arranged vibrant bouquets of jasmine and lilies. Every detail felt like a piece of her dream coming to life. But not everyone shared her enthusiasm. At first, her family and friends were supportive, praising her selflessness and how deeply Abdullah made her happy. However, as the wedding drew closer, whispers of doubt began to surface. Subtle but persistent questions emerged. Was this the right choice? Could love alone be enough? One evening, as Huda sat at her parents' home, sipping mint tea, her mother finally voiced what everyone had been too polite to say outright. "Sweetheart, are you absolutely certain about this? Of course, I know his family is wealthy." Her voice was gentle but tinged with concern. Huda's stomach tightened. "Mom, what do you mean? I love Abdullah, not his family," she replied, her tone sharp with defensiveness. Her mother set her teacup down with a quiet sigh. "I know you do, Huda, but marriage is a lifelong commitment. And marrying someone with a disability?" Her voice trailed off delicately. "It's not going to be easy. You have to think about what your future might look like." The knot in Huda's chest tightened. She had heard similar remarks from a few friends, but hearing it from her mother stung in a different way. "Abdullah being in a wheelchair doesn't change who he is," she said firmly, though a flicker of doubt crept into her voice. "He's still the man I fell in love with. Why does everyone act like that's not enough?" Her mother's expression softened, but her words carried an undeniable weight. "It's not just the wheelchair, honey. It's everything that comes with it. Are you ready for that kind of responsibility? What if his health declines? What if you have to care for him in ways you're not prepared for? I just don't want you to feel overwhelmed or trapped." Later that night, Huda lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling. Her mother's words echoed endlessly in her mind. She had always known that being with Abdullah might bring challenges, but she had buried those thoughts deep. Now, with the wedding just weeks away, those fears were surfacing, unbidden and insistent. "What if Mom's right?" she whispered into the dark. "What if I'm not strong enough? What if things get too hard?" Her love for Abdullah had always been a source of strength, filling her with hope and warmth. But now, the swirling doubts felt like an unwelcome shadow over what should have been the happiest time of her life. Could their love truly withstand the obstacles ahead? In the days that followed, Huda threw herself into wedding preparations, hoping to drown out her worries. She focused on the excitement, the flowers, the venue, the guest list. But the whispers of doubt weren't confined to her family. Friends, acquaintances, even strangers who felt compelled to weigh in, subtly questioned her decision. Each remark chipped away at her confidence, leaving her wondering, was love really enough? One afternoon, while having lunch with her closest friends at a small cafe in Lee, her best friend Layla leaned forward with a serious expression. "Huda, we love you, and we adore Abdullah, but are you truly happy?" Huda paused mid-bite, startled by the sudden shift in the conversation. "What's that supposed to mean?" she asked, her voice laced with defensiveness. Layla hesitated, glancing at the others for support. "It's just, we worry about you. You're always so giving, always putting everyone else ahead of yourself," Layla said, her tone tinged with concern. "We just want to make sure this is what you want, not something you feel you have to do." Huda sighed, setting her wrap down as her appetite vanished. "Of course, it's what I want," she replied firmly, though a slight tremor betrayed her unease. "Abdullah makes me happy? Isn't that the point?" Yasmin, another friend, chimed in gently. "It is, Huda, but this is your whole life we're talking about. Have you really thought about what it'll be like when things get tough?" That night, Huda sat alone in her cozy apartment, the skyline of Sharar glittering through the window. Her eyes landed on the stack of wedding invitations, still waiting to be sent out. The earlier conversation lingered in her mind, leaving a bitter taste. It was as if everyone around her thought she was making some grand sacrifice by marrying Abdullah, that her love for him was somehow rooted in pity or obligation. But Huda knew better. Abdullah's disability wasn't what defined him. He was compassionate, intelligent, and endlessly funny. He had a way of grounding her when her anxiety spiraled and making her laugh even on her darkest days. Closing her eyes, she let the memories of their time together wash over her. The quiet afternoons at Alma's waterfront, where he had held her hand as she confessed her fears. The twinkle in his eyes during their late-night conversations about life and dreams. Her love for Abdullah was real, deeply real. It wasn't about sacrifice, it was about connection, partnership, and joy. People saw his wheelchair and assumed the worst, but they couldn't see what she saw. A man who radiated strength and kindness. Taking a deep breath, Huda steeled herself. She wouldn't let doubts, hers or anyone else's, cloud her decision. Every marriage had its share of challenges. What mattered was that she and Abdullah loved each other and were ready to face the future together as equals. On the day of the wedding, Huda sat before a large mirror in her preparation room at the venue, her heart pounding with a mix of excitement and nerves. Her wedding dress, a stunning piece of ivory lace adorned with intricate beadwork, hung nearby. It was perfect, the dress she had always imagined. "Huda, are you ready?" Layla called from the adjoining room. Huda smiled faintly at her reflection. Layla had been by her side throughout the preparations, even after voicing her concerns. "Almost," Huda replied softly. As her fingers traced the delicate lace of the dress, she glanced at herself in the mirror, whispering reassurances. She told herself she was ready, though the enormity of the moment loomed large. In just a few hours, she would walk down the aisle to marry Abdullah. Layla helped her into the dress, and Huda's thoughts drifted to the ceremony. The room would be filled with family, friends, and acquaintances. Some had supported her from the start, thrilled to see her so happy. But others, distant relatives and old acquaintances, still harbored doubts. She could almost hear their whispers rippling through the crowd. Is she sure about this? How will it work in the long run? Huda shook off the thoughts. Today wasn't about them. It was about her and Abdullah, about the love they shared and the life they were building together. With her veil carefully pinned in place, she took one last look in the mirror. She didn't just see a bride, she saw a woman who had found a love worth fighting for. At the venue, the atmosphere buzzed with excitement. Guests filled the seats, their laughter and whispers creating a lively hum. Some had never met Abdullah and were curious about the man who had captured Huda's heart. Others who knew him admired the strength of their relationship. "I just hope she knows what she's doing," a distant cousin whispered to her companion. "From what I've heard, he's a good man," the companion replied. "Maybe that's all that matters." Amid the murmurs and chatter, Abdullah waited in the wings, calm and composed. To him, this wasn't just a wedding. It was a testament to the love they had built together, a love that had faced doubts and emerged stronger. His sharp suit fit him perfectly, and his eyes glimmered with quiet joy as he prepared to take the next step in their journey together. As the ceremony drew closer, both Huda and Abdullah understood that this day wasn't just the beginning of their marriage. It was their declaration to the world. Love, in all its forms, was worth every challenge. Abdullah wasn't consumed by the finer details or the judgments of others. This day wasn't about anyone else. It was about him and the woman he loved. And for Abdullah, that was more than enough. He had faced many struggles in life and knew that doubt often lingered, like a shadow that refused to fade. But through it all, he had learned to hold on to what truly mattered. Today, what mattered most was Huda. Deep in his soul, he felt certain that her love for him was as unwavering as his love for her. That certainty kept him grounded, even under the immense weight of this life-changing day. The soft hum of conversation floated around him, some voices encouraging, others curious, a few skeptical. Abdullah caught the occasional side glance or whispered remark, but they were easy to ignore. He had long since stopped living to prove himself to others. This day wasn't about earning approval. It was about committing himself to the woman who had brought profound light into his life. In a nearby preparation room, Huda adjusted the lace-trimmed gown that shimmered under the soft, golden light. She exhaled deeply as her father entered, his eyes glistening with pride and emotion. "You look stunning, sweetheart," he said, his voice tender yet steady. "Thank you, Dad," Huda replied with a small, nervous smile. But her hands fidgeted with her veil, betraying the uncertainty creeping into her thoughts. "Do you think I'm making the right choice?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Her father paused, stepping closer. "Huda," he began gently, "I'll admit, at first, I wasn't sure. I had my reservations, just like some others. But then I saw the way Abdullah looks at you. It's as if nothing else in the world matters when you're in the room. And more importantly, I see the way you look at him. That's all I need to know." Huda's chest tightened as tears welled in her eyes. She nodded and gripped her father's hand tightly. "Thank you," she murmured, her voice quivering with emotion. "I love him so much." "I know you do," her father replied, his warm smile spreading across his face. As the melodic strains of the ode began to fill the hall, signaling it was time, Huda took her father's arm. Her pulse quickened as they stepped into the grand hall of the mosque. The guests turned in unison, their whispers swelling before giving way to silence. The moment felt surreal. The aisle, adorned with delicate jasmine garlands, seemed impossibly long. Huda's legs trembled slightly as she began her walk. But then, her eyes locked with Abdullah's, and the world fell away. He waited at the end of the aisle, calm and steady as always. His gaze filled with a love so profound, it steadied her nerves. As she reached him and their hands met, Huda felt her heart soar. Everything she had dreamed of was unfolding before her. The air was heavy with emotion as the imam began the ceremony, his voice resonating through the ornate hall. Huda's heart raced, but then she noticed something off. Abdullah, her pillar of strength and certainty, looked different. Beneath his calm exterior, there was a flicker of something else, a shadow of hesitation. Her stomach tightened as she studied his expression, searching for reassurance. Before she could whisper her concern, Abdullah gave her hand a gentle squeeze. But she felt the slight tremor in his fingers, and her unease deepened. Just as the imam prepared to begin the vows, Abdullah inhaled deeply. His voice cut through the quiet, "Huda, wait." The words were soft, yet heavy, breaking the sacred silence of the room. The crowd stirred, murmurs rippling through the rows of seated guests. Huda's heart skipped a beat, her mind swirling with unanswered questions. "What's happening?" she thought, her breath catching in her chest. Abdullah swallowed hard, his eyes locked on hers, a mixture of guilt and determination in his gaze. "Before we go any further, Abdullah began, his voice trembling slightly. "There's something I need to say. Something I should have told you a long time ago." His words were quiet, almost lost in the low murmur of the gathering. Huda's breath hitched and a knot of unease tightened in her chest. "Abdullah, what are you talking about?" she asked, her voice trembling, barely audible. Abdullah hesitated, his gaze shifting briefly toward the crowd before returning to her. "I'm not who you think I am," he said softly, his tone heavy with regret. "I'm not actually disabled." The words hit Huda like a thunderclap. Her legs wavered beneath her, and her mind scrambled to process what she had just heard. "What?" she managed, her voice faint and disbelieving. "What do you mean?" The room seemed to freeze. The hum of conversation faded, and it felt as though the air itself had been sucked away. All eyes turned toward them, but Huda felt as though only she and Abdullah existed in that moment. Abdullah's gaze bore into hers, pleading. "I'm not really disabled," he repeated, his voice steadier now, but still tinged with remorse. "I've been pretending." A collective gasp rippled through the hall, echoing like a wave in the majestic space of the mosque. Huda could feel the weight of every stare, but she didn't care. All she could see was Abdullah, the man she thought she knew, the man she had given her heart to. Her voice trembled as she demanded, "Why? Why would you do something like that?" Abdullah inhaled deeply, his focus unwavering. "I needed to know if someone could love me for me," he explained, his words deliberate. "Not for my appearance, not for my wealth, not for anything superficial. I wanted to find someone who would love me for who I truly am." Tears welled in Huda's eyes, her heart pounding painfully in her chest. "You lied to me," she whispered, her voice breaking. "You lied to me this whole time." Abdullah's face crumpled, guilt etched deeply into his features. "I never meant to hurt you, Huda," he said earnestly. "I didn't know another way to find real love. So many people have taken advantage of me, for what I have, for the life I can give them. I couldn't take it anymore." He lowered his gaze, shame shadowing his face. "When I met you, I saw something different. Your kindness, your selflessness. I wanted to know if someone like you could love me without knowing about my money or that I could walk. I had to know." The room was silent now, even the guests holding their breath as Abdullah's confession hung in the air. Huda's mind raced, her emotions tangled in a storm of hurt, anger, and a love that refused to simply vanish. The man she cared for had built their relationship on lies. Yet, despite everything, her feelings for him hadn't disappeared. "You should have trusted me," she said, her voice breaking as tears spilled freely down her cheeks. "You should have told me the truth from the start, Abdullah. I loved you. I loved you for you, not for your wheelchair, not for your money. But now I don't even know what's real." Abdullah reached out, his hands trembling as they hovered over hers. His eyes brimmed with sorrow. "Huda," he murmured, his voice raw with emotion. "I know I hurt you, and I don't think I'll ever forgive myself for that. But I promise you, the man you fell in love with, that's who I truly am. The wheelchair doesn't define me. It never has. I had to know your love was genuine." His voice cracked, his desperation evident. Huda stepped back, her hands slipping from his grasp as though his touch burned her. Her thoughts spiraled, her breath shallow, and the ground beneath her seemed to shift, unsteady, as her world began to unravel. How could the man she had trusted so completely betray her in this way? The murmurs from the gathered crowd swelled, filling the room like a tide. Some exchanged scandalized glances, their outrage plain, while others whispered in hushed tones, trying to piece together the fragments of this shattered moment. "Abdullah," she began, her voice trembling. "I love you, Huda," he interrupted, his voice thick with urgency. "That love, that's the only truth. Everything else, it was wrong, I know. But my love for you has always been real." Huda's gaze locked onto his, searching for answers, for a shred of honesty amidst the wreckage of his lies. Her heart felt torn, caught between the depth of her feelings for him and the overwhelming betrayal she couldn't ignore. Huda's chest tightened as the silence between them grew unbearable. Her heart was torn between love and betrayal. Finally, she inhaled deeply, summoning strength she didn't feel. Her voice was low but steady, though a faint tremor betrayed her inner turmoil. "Abdullah," she began, her words measured. "I need time. I need to think." Without another word, Huda turned and walked quickly down the aisle, tears spilling freely as her mind raced. The ornate arches of the Shahrar Mosque blurred around her, the golden light of the chandeliers now feeling cold and distant. Her chest felt heavy, her breaths labored, as though she were drowning under the weight of her pain. The man she thought she knew, the man she loved, had built their relationship on deceit. She had given him everything, her trust, her heart. And now, it all felt like an illusion. Her hands trembled as she pushed open the door to a small room behind the main hall and shut herself inside. Leaning against the wall, Huda fought to catch her breath as her thoughts swirled in a chaotic storm. How could Abdullah do this? How could he pretend to be someone he wasn't? She had loved him for the man he was, not for his wheelchair, not for his circumstances, and certainly not for his wealth. Yet, this revelation cast a shadow over everything they had shared. Her knees buckled and she sank into a chair, burying her face in her hands. "What do I do?" she whispered into the silence, her voice breaking under the weight of her heartbreak. She loved Abdullah, she couldn't deny that. But the betrayal cut so deeply, she wondered how she could ever rebuild the trust he had shattered. Back at the front of the hall, Abdullah stood motionless, his eyes fixed on the door Huda had disappeared through. The air was thick with tension, the room eerily silent, except for the occasional shuffling of feet and quiet coughs from the stunned guests. Abdullah's heart ached with every beat. He had hurt the woman he loved more than anything in the world, and the realization gutted him. This wasn't how he had meant for it to happen. He hadn't wanted to deceive her, not really. He just wanted to know that someone could love him for who he truly was, beyond the wheelchair, beyond his family's wealth. He thought he was protecting his heart, but now he saw the damage he had caused. Abdullah longed to run after Huda, to drop to his knees and beg her to understand. But he knew she needed space, and he wouldn't deny her that. So, he stayed rooted to the spot, his fists clenched at his sides, silently praying that she might come back, that she might see the love behind his flawed choices. In the quiet room, Huda wiped her tear-streaked face, forcing herself to breathe slowly. Her thoughts began to settle, though her heart still felt raw. She thought of Abdullah, not the man who had lied to her, but the man she had come to love. His kindness, his humor, his unwavering strength, those parts of him were real. Weren't they? Her fingers curled tightly around the fabric of her dress as she wrestled with her emotions. Yes, Abdullah had betrayed her, but their love, the laughter, the shared dreams, the connection that had felt so profound, that had been real. Hadn't it? Huda exhaled shakily, the weight of her emotions pressing down on her. She wasn't ready to forgive, not yet, but deep in her heart, she knew that love like theirs didn't come along often. Could it survive this storm? Only time would tell. Huda exhaled shakily, her mind torn. Could she forgive him? Could she rebuild what they had, knowing the foundation had been cracked? Outside the small room, the faint sound of the call to prayer echoed through the air, a gentle reminder of faith and resilience. Though Huda didn't yet have all the answers, she clung to one truth: love was never simple, but it was always worth fighting for. Memories of their time together flooded her mind, the laughter, the heartfelt conversations, the way Abdullah had always supported her. These moments felt undeniably genuine. She had never cared about his wheelchair or his wealth. What mattered to her was his heart. The realization dawned on her gently, like the quiet waves of the Arabian Gulf, brushing against the shore, softening her turbulent thoughts. Her feelings for Abdullah weren't rooted in his appearance or his circumstances. She loved him for his kindness, for the way he understood her like no one else ever had, and for the fact that he saw her for who she truly was. Even amidst the lies, that truth remained steadfast. Her heart throbbed with a mix of pain and clarity, but deep down, she knew her love for him hadn't wavered. It wasn't about the wheelchair, nor was it about the money. It was about Abdullah, the man who had given her a love unlike any she had ever known. It was imperfect, but it was real. With newfound resolve, Huda rose to her feet. Her chest still felt heavy, but her steps were steadier now. She had to face Abdullah, to speak with him, to lay her feelings bare. The anger and confusion still lingered, but they no longer consumed her. She needed to confront him, not to judge, but to understand. Taking a deep breath, Huda re-entered the hall. The tension in the room was palpable as the guests turned their attention toward her. Murmurs rippled through the gathering, but she ignored them. Her focus was entirely on Abdullah, who sat at the edge of the stage, his face a mixture of guilt and hope. As she approached, the noise around her faded into a blur. When she stopped in front of him, her heart pounded loudly in her chest. She looked directly into his eyes and saw deep regret and earnestness reflected back at her. "Why, Abdullah?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper but laced with emotion. "Why didn't you just tell me the truth?" Abdullah's throat tightened as he struggled to respond. "I was afraid, Huda," he admitted, his voice thick with vulnerability. "I've been hurt before, used by people who only wanted me for my money or for what I could offer them. I didn't want to lose you because of that. I needed to know if anyone could love me for who I truly am. Just Abdullah." He hesitated, his voice cracking. "I never meant to hurt you. I didn't know how to believe that this, what we have, was real." Huda's heart tightened as she listened to his words. She understood now. Even though the pain still lingered, she could see his fear, mirroring her own doubts from before. In his own way, Abdullah had been searching for the same thing she had, real love. "I wish you had trusted me," Huda whispered, her voice thick with emotion as tears welled in her eyes again. "I always have, but it's so hard to know what's real anymore." Abdullah stepped closer, his voice cracking with desperation. "What's real, Huda, is my love for you. That's never changed. The man you fell in love with, the one who listens to you, who makes you laugh, who would do anything to make you happy. That's the real me. Everything else, the lie. I'm so sorry. If you'll let me, I'll spend the rest of my life making it right." Huda looked at him, her heart torn but also full of love. She had always believed in love, the real kind, and she had found it in Abdullah. The deception had hurt, but the bond they shared ran deeper than that. In that moment, she made her choice. "I love you, Abdullah," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "And I forgive you. But we need to rebuild the trust. We have to be honest with each other from now on." Abdullah's eyes filled with tears as he nodded, his voice thick with emotion. "I promise, Huda. No more secrets. I love you, and I'm ready to spend the rest of my life proving that to you." The guests stood in stunned silence, witnessing the raw sincerity of the moment. The imam, sensing the change in the air, stepped forward once more to continue the ceremony. With tears in their eyes, Huda and Abdullah exchanged their vows, their voices trembling with the weight of everything they had endured. Their promises weren't just words, they were a commitment to love each other, imperfections and all. As they sealed their vows with a kiss, the room erupted in applause. After their wedding, Huda and Abdullah began a life of fulfillment they had never dared to imagine. Together, they built a home filled with love, raising their children with care, compassion, and thoughtful guidance. Each day, they taught their kids not only patience and kindness, but also the importance of helping others. Despite life's challenges, Huda and Abdullah found joy in giving back. They dedicated themselves to charity projects, especially in the impoverished regions of the Middle East. These trips deepened their appreciation for the value of sharing and allowed them to teach their children lessons of empathy and selflessness. They created a family that was not only close-knit, but also brimming with love. A love that extended beyond their home and into the world. Their happiness wasn't just measured by the sweet moments they shared, but by the continuous acts of love they gave to others. This made their life even more complete, as they nurtured their bond while making a difference in the world. Their story became a testament to the power of trust, forgiveness, and the unwavering belief that true love is worth fighting for. Together, they reminded everyone that the greatest adventure isn't just about finding love. It's about nurturing it, sharing it, and making a lasting impact on the world as partners. If you've enjoyed this heartfelt journey, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more inspiring stories. Share this with someone who needs a reminder of the beauty of real, raw love. Thank you for being part of our community. Until next time, take care and keep spreading love wherever you go.